Still live with us on NC Continental Prime. Now, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, says that Ghana has reached agreement with the International Monetary Fund on the terms for a second payment of $600 million out of its $3 billion credit deal. Now, it says payment of a second portion of Ghana's loan will come after the IMF board's final approval and bring the total disbursed since May to $1.2 billion. Ghana signed a deal with the IMF in December as the country sought to shore up its public finances and better manage debt to emerge from its worst economic crisis in decades.
Such that, God willing, by November, we actually would then have released 1.2 billion of the 3 billion effective in that. So truly a lot of work has gone into this to give Ghana the opportunity to stabilize much faster. I'm pleased to announce that the progress that we sought to achieve is very, very much on course. The stability that the Ghanaian economy was very much in need of has been achieved. We said we have turned the corner.
The minister mentioned that the growth performance in the first half was of the order of slightly north of 3% growth. And what we had in terms of projection for the year as a whole was 1.5%. So that gives you an idea of the difference in terms of what is actually happening on the ground and what the assumptions of the program were. And so yes, we will revise growth up for this year, but the
management. I'm now joined by Dr. Joseph Obeng, the president, Ghana Union of Traders Association, and of course, business reporter and researcher, EIB Network, Edem Kojo. Thank you so much, Dr. Joseph and Edem, for joining us on the news today.
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, gentlemen. Now, let's get straight to the conversation. Speaking of Ghana's debt management, Dr. Joseph, can you explain the significance of the staff-level agreement between the IMF and Ghana's government in the context of Ghana's economy in general?
Yeah.
Dr. Joseph, can you hear us?
Oh.
Please confirm you can hear us. Okay, while we wait for Dr. Joseph to get his audio fixed, Edem, now how might the debt restructuring plan impact Ghana's financial stability and, of course, Ghana's relationship with its official creditors?
Okay, thank you very much, and good evening to everyone watching us. As the minister or the visuals you put out informed us, Ghana indeed received what is known as the staff level agreement. We know this doesn't necessarily mean that the $600 million has been credited to the account. According to the IMF rep in the country, this is expected to be sent to the board and the executive council, who will then give an approval. So Ghana is actually looking at getting the money by November 1. Now, the role of debt restructuring, for those who have followed the news on the Ghanaian scene for the past year, you realize that there was a local or domestic part of the restructuring that was done. And government managed to get nearly 97% of local bonds restructured, which extended the payment period for which government ought to have handled that. The only stumbling block as we speak now is the external debt. That is what's on the table now. And that is what the IMF even says, that before the first 600 million was given on the 17th of May, when the first board level agreement was reached, what happened was that the creditors said they made some commitment that along the line they were willing to alter or change and restructure their bonds or their debt to Ghana because of the precarious situation Ghana was in. The problem that the IMF is raising now is that as we speak today, we have not moved beyond the assurances. We expect that at least an MOU should be signed between both parties, that is the creditors, and then the government of Ghana, which which restructures the external debt. And so that is what basically is the hurdle now. That is what actually could even be could hamper the $6 million being credited to the Ghanaian economy, because although a staff level agreement has been reached, at the board level, the decision was that by the time such an agreement is brought, or by the time the first review, which was done over the past 2 weeks, is done, at least an MOU showing the terms clearly of how the debt with external creditors is done is brought to the fore. So
right.
That is actually the missing link in all this.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Once again, Dr. Joseph, can you confirm your audio is good now? All right. In the meantime, Edem, now how would you say the IMF typically assesses a country's eligibility for financial assistance, and what role does the executive board play in the process?
Okay, so I would want to bring this to the process that Ghana began last year, July 1, where the president of the Republic instructed the finance minister to write to the IMF seeking a bailout. For you to get a bailout, it means, first of all, that you are in some financial challenge. The problem Ghana faced last year was that Ghana was so indebted. In fact, official figures show that the country's debt to GDP was well over 90%, which shows that Ghana was actually not sustainable when it comes to its debt. What then happened was that because of the high level of debt, Ghana was also additionally shut off from the international market. So Ghana could not borrow from the Eurobond market, could not borrow from international financiers to help support the economy. And because of that, growth in the economy started dwindling. Then Ghana goes to the IMF, tells the IMF that I need you to come give me some support financially. But the IMF will want to ensure, the IMF is a lending body, so the IMF will want to ensure that even as a country, you have the prerequisite structures in place to show that whatever cash or funds that is dispersed to you, you'll be able to pay back that amount in due course. So based on that, Ghana or the country is then required to present its own recovery plan, which shows the things and the structures that are going to be put in place to ensure that within the short, medium, and long term, the country returns back to a sustainable place when it comes to debt-wise. And a very critical space in here was the debt restructuring that Ghana had to undertake. So this is something that usually the IMF goes on to do, and this is basically what happened. And as I said, with respect to the Executive Council, particularly with Ghana, it is the assurances from the creditors that resulted in the agreement or in the board level agreement on the May of 17.
All right.
And more assurances for that needs to be done.
Okay. Thank you so much, Edem Kojo, business reporter and researcher. Thanks for joining us on the news today.
Thank you too.